Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I'm your host, Strata lawyer Amanda Farmer. It is Friday. We are here ready to cover off the week that was in Strata. We're going out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page. Hello to all of our Facebook followers. We're heading out to LinkedIn. We're also going out to YouTube. Great to be here with you. I am back in my home studio after a visit to Sydney last week. Those of you who joined me online would have noticed I was in a different spot. Settled back home for like about 72 hours. I will be on a plane on Monday heading over to the United States. Interesting place to be going right now. I am attending the annual Community Associations Institute law seminar. So the equivalent of us strata lawyers over there in the US are called Community Association lawyers. I will be representing the Australian College of Strata Lawyers as their delegate over in San Antonio, Texas. Posted a little bit about that on the page earlier this week, but chilly over there. So I'll be packing up the bags, making sure I've got the winter woolies in there for my trip to the US next week. And I can't wait to bring you some insights from that conference. Always an eye opener. Lots of things the same, lots of things very different, and very much on a very large scale over in the US. So looking forward to catching up with colleagues and getting stuck into some learnings over there. So many of you are here right on time. You've just been hanging in the wings there, waiting for me to press live. Sean M, hey, Sean O. Sean M is saying, I'm over meeting notice periods. Just over it. In New South Wales, what are we up to now? Full 14 days before AGMs, 7 days before general meetings, putting those in the post. We're having to get that done 3-4 weeks in advance. Giving you a headache, Sean. Hey, Kristen, happy Friday to you. Suzanne saying, love the new hairstyle. It's a bit of a story behind the hairstyle, Suzanne. Not sure if I might share that one with you guys in a couple of weeks. But just today's story is that too much purple shampoo and I turned my hair blue. I don't know if you can see the blue tint on the ends there. That's just for today. That'll fade. Won't turn up to the US with blue hair. Don't worry, guys. Hey, it happens. The blondes, the platinum blondes in the world will understand what I'm talking about with the purple shampoo. Hey, Luke, saying hello to the two Seans. Karina is here saying hello. How you doing? All right, we're all here. There's lots more of you tuning in. If you want to say hi, feel free to jump in and say hi to me, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube. Love to see those hellos, especially if you're catching the replay as well. I do see those come through. Very 80s, says Sean. Thank you. I think if that's on my hairstyle, I'll take it. Indeed, lots to talk about today. It's been a lot going on in Strata. I've actually had to take a couple of things off the list that I had put on the list earlier this week. A few news articles that were floating around. I encourage you to have a scroll further down the Facebook page, have a look at my LinkedIn profile if you're looking for some updates on what's happening in Strata, because I can't cover everything today. Because what I really want to get into is a bit of a hot button issue that has become more of a hot button as the few days have passed this week. Rena and I started talking about it on the podcast. By some coincidence of the universe, this was not planned, but some coincidence of the universe, a very similar discussion was happening over on LinkedIn at the time that we published this week's podcast. It is about the way owners communicate with strata managers communicate with owners. Lots of you have strong views on this. When I see that there's a strong view out there, and I've got one as well. Don't know if it's strong, but I have a view definitely that I intend to share with you. I want to bring it here to this forum, and I encourage you to post in the comments what your views are. Please, as always, as I like to say when we're dealing with controversial topics, please be mindful that we don't mention names here on these platforms. If you do mention a name, your comment will be deleted and you may well be blocked from these public pages. So do be mindful that whilst we do want to all share our views, we also want to comply with the law. On a page like this, We need to make sure that we are not engaging in any defamatory publication and be respectful at all times. So have a think before you press post, as much as I do want you to be sharing your thoughts, whether you're an owner, a strata manager, a committee member, a lawyer, a service provider. Strap yourself in. Hello, Melissa. How are you? Desert is saying happy Friday. Shauno's hitting the club. Cool. We'll find him there. Maureen, happy Friday to you. This week's podcast episode number 437, my first chat of the year with strata manager Rena Van Alst. And look, I don't know if she was hanging on to this one over the break, but she got straight into it, sharing with us the content of an email that one of her colleagues, I think in a different strata management company, one of her colleagues had received. She read it out. We had a chat about it. That is what I want to talk about today. I'm going to come back to that after I share a little bit of other opening news with you. In the podcast episode, we also talked about compulsory appointments and how Rena is using a really clever, I think, strategy in her compulsory appointments, where she's been appointed by the tribunal as an administrator to a dysfunctional community to get it back on track, to get it complying with the law. Administrators have really broad powers to make decisions for the owners corporation as the owners corporation and for owners. But Rena is doing something in her compulsory managements that mean at the end of that 1 year or 2 years of compulsory management, the building loves her and they want to appoint her as their voluntary voted in manager. We talk a bit about what that is that she's doing. So if you're a strata manager and you want to get some tips, listen into that. If you're an owner who is thinking about having a compulsory manager appointed, you want to get the heads up on this particular strategy. So check out the podcast covering lots of different things this week, episode 437. The link is going into the comments here for you. We're also sharing a win from one of the members inside our online membership community. Has come out victorious once again, I have to say, victorious once again from the New South Wales Tribunal, and I share a little bit about that member's experience representing themselves before the tribunal and the things that they did to be able to achieve that success. And so from some comments under the episode on the website already, you're asking questions. You're wondering how that outcome might have been achieved. Tune in and learn more from this week's podcast episode. Hey, Debbie from Brisbane. Lee is tuning in from Perth. Lovely to see you, Lee. Vicky from Lake Macquarie. Come on in. We are just settling into our Friday Live. That's the podcast. Yes, I know what you're here for. Yes, we are going to talk about some of that in more detail. But I said there's a lot going on in Strata this week, a lot in the news. I had a couple of other articles on my run sheet for today that I've had to pull off so that we have room to talk about this hot button issue that I've promised you we're going to talk about. Yesterday's ABC News, strata firm NetStrata fighting to overturn a draft report with findings into claims of excessive fees. That was the headline on ABC News yesterday. Link here for you if you haven't seen it yet. I posted it on the page yesterday. Those of you who have been with us for 12 months or so, I don't need to fill you in on what the discussion has been around the practices and alleged practices of NetStrata, one of the most high-profile strata management firms in the country. ABC has given us an update, and many of us were wondering what was going on with the investigation into the practices of NetStrata. I'm pleased that the ABC is still onto this because we haven't been receiving too many updates from anywhere else. Apparently, as the ABC reports, NetStrata was permitted to argue against the findings that had been made by the expert, McGrath-Nicol, that had been appointed by Fair Trading to conduct this investigation. NetStrata had been permitted to argue against their findings under the terms of the enforceable undertaking that it entered into with Fair Trading last year, in May last year. I'm reading, that was, gosh, that's some time ago now. Under that enforceable undertaking, Netstrata was permitted to get a summary of the McGrath-Nicholl report, permitted to review that summary, to comment on that summary, and then McGrath-Nicholl could, if they felt that they needed to, make any further redactions to the report in light of those comments. Apparently, we're hearing from the ABC that lawyers acting for Netstrata have sent Fair Trading a 70-page document that refutes the, we're told, adverse findings that are contained in the McGrath-Nicholl report. McGrath-Nicholl is saying to the ABC that any amendments that they might make to their draft findings will be based on factual evidence that they had not previously received. So it sounds like they're going through that material and working out whether or not their report is ready to publish. We're told in that article that fees are through the roof. The number 900,000 has been thrown around as perhaps what it has cost for McGrath-Nicholl to perform this investigation. I have to say, I'm not surprised at that number. I would expect this kind of investigation might cost that in professional fees. ABC reports that rather than use its own investigations unit, Fair Trading chose to outsource this review to a third party and that Netstrata agreed to pay for it. Sounds from the reporting like not all of those fees have been paid, and that may be part of the reason for the delay in this report being released. So I hope we get to see it. I hope it does get finished. I hope there is a conclusion and some recommendations coming out of this exercise. Check out that article if you haven't read it yet. Dropping back around to those hellos, Danielle is on board here from the entrance. Hey, Danielle. Daryl saying, good afternoon, Strata friends. Apologies for being late. No one's ever late. Turn up when you can. Those famous calls, said Daryl. I have a problem and I want it dealt with immediately on a Friday before a long weekend. Oh, I keep forgetting that it's a long weekend. I'm living in the January bubble where we've had public holidays and school holidays, and then there's another public holiday that just jumps up. I'm going to be on a plane for most of the day, so I've kind of wiped that one off. Yes, the call, I have a problem. I get the call, which I try not to answer these days. It's just a quick question. Just a quick question, Amanda. No quick questions and no small problems in Strata. I sympathise. Daryl. Sean M is saying that the McGrath-Nicholl investigation only looked at 2022, 2024, and for 5% of Netstrata's clients. Yeah, those were the terms of the undertaking. Without the undertaking, I'm not sure that Fair Trading would have had the power to conduct any of this investigation. So that's what it took to get the undertaking, to narrow it down in that way. Then that's where it ended up. Hey, Kareem, telling me that it feels like my life is now 90% Strata. That's interesting. Kareem, I imagine you might have a few projects on the boil there, perhaps with your buildings that you're working with, perhaps more broadly than that. I'd be interested to hear what's going on there. Thank you for tuning in. If you are in Victoria from the 1st of January, 2025, that's a couple of weeks ago now, Victorian owners corporations can make rules, that's the Victorian equivalent of bylaws, that ban short-term letting. Our Victorians, are you across this one? Similar to the rules we have now in New South Wales, if you're going to make this rule in Victoria, you have to be sure that it doesn't apply to lots that are an owner or occupier's principal place of residence. So I am often summarizing that as we can ban investors from short-term letting. And by that we mean Airbnb-ing their apartments. We can ban investors, but we can't ban owner-occupiers, people who live in their apartment. They are permitted in New South Wales to a maximum term, but they are permitted to short-term let. Looks like from what I'm reading, that same rule is now in force in Victoria, with an important difference. The definition of short stay in Victoria is anything less than 28 days. in New South Wales, a short stay is anything less than 3 months, if I have that correctly. So in Victoria, it's a little bit harder, I think, to fit into that definition of short stay. That's a key difference between the Victorian and the New South Wales legislation. This all came in on the 1st of January this year under the Short Stay Levy Act 2024. That act started at the beginning of this year. And it's called the Short Stay Levy Act because it does just that. It imposes a levy on those who are accepting bookings for a short stay, a stay that is less than 28 consecutive days. So owners may have to pay the short stay levy. I actually think it is paid by the booking platform or through the booking platform. Are the rules around that? And I imagine the booking platform is then passing that on to the owner of the property. The levy is a flat 7.5% of the total booking fees paid. And it doesn't apply where it is someone is letting out part of their principal place of residence. This is a levy, a tax, a fee on investor owners who are engaging in short-term letting, in Airbnb. This is the Victorians' answer to this practice that is said to be contributing to the housing crisis, with the idea, the promise, I think, that the revenue that's raised by the short stay levy is going to fund Homes Victoria, with 25% of funds that are going to be invested in regional Victoria. So building more housing. I'm not sure if Homes Victoria is that affordable housing that we're building, but that is where that levy is going. Interested to hear from you, Victorians. I know there's a few of you who are here in our world. Is that impacting you? Is that something you've heard about? Are your buildings now saying, great, awesome, let's go and make these rules that prevent investor owners from short-term letting? This legislation commenced, I want to say 2021 in New South Wales, and I've got a template short stay bylaw or a prohibition of short stay bylaws in my library available to our members. It's very popular. We saw lots of buildings implementing these bylaws, trying to deal with the problematic behavior, the fallout, the burden on the common areas, on residents that short stays often bring. So Victorian lawyers now entering that space, no doubt, of drafting these prohibitions on short stays. Just really important to make sure that's carefully drafted, not to impact, not to prohibit those who are Airbnb their principal place of residence. I did go and have a look at the legislation and wondered if Victoria fell into the same trap as New South Wales in not defining principal place of residence. That's a question I get all the time. What is that supposed to mean? How do we know if it's someone's principal place of residence? It's not defined in the New South Wales legislation. It's not defined in the Victorian legislation. There's a little bit more guidance around it, but it's looking pretty similar to the New South Wales position. The guidance that I give is that this is a term, principal place of residence, that is used in the Land Tax Management Act, if I got that name right, and that the same position, what your tax position is as to your principal place of residence, would be what we should be relying on when determining whether a property is somebody's principal place of residence. Is it your PPR for tax purposes or not? That's how I draft my bylaws. Give you a little insight. Jeff Dale is here saying, why all the fuss? Unit below us is BNB, no problem. Tesla owners borrow our power for recharge. I never ask for money. They normally buy a 6-pack. Oh, love it. When Strata works, it works, Jeff. When it doesn't, I have a platform with thousands of owners tuning in to work out why it's not working and how to fix it. So good to hear that that's working well in your building. Not the case for many, many others. Okay, so that's what's happening in Victoria. I do have a link, if we haven't popped it in already, to Vic. I've just lost the consumer.vic.gov.au. I'm going to say your Consumer Affairs, I think it's called, in Victoria, with a nice summary of that short stay legislation and how it specifically affects our owners' corporations in Victoria. So that's a good one to share, strata managers, with your buildings and committees. Have a look at if you're interested in learning more about that. All right, we're all here. We're all warmed up. We're all ready for the main event. It's only 4:20. I'm moving fast today because I do want to leave time for this important discussion. And I'm going to start here. This week's podcast, Rena and I had a chat. Some of you may have listened to it. Some of you may have seen some comments about it on the Facebook page or on LinkedIn. Rena and I asked, what is being done? By who? And who is responsible for addressing the abysmal, was the word used, the abysmal way that some strata managers are treated by their clients? And what I'm going to do here is give you a little peek at that part of the video discussion that Rena and I had. You don't often see this. You might see some of it in our promos, but we record our entire chat by video. I'm going to play for you that part of the discussion where Rena read out to me the content of an email that one of her colleagues, not in her business, in another strata management business, one of her colleagues had received. And you'll hear, if you go and listen to the full podcast, that colleague has said to Rena, can you read this on the podcast to Amanda and see what she thinks and see what others think about this email received by a strata manager from an owner. I'm going to play this for you now.
I'll actually read out what she said. Do you think I care about the likes of you? You are a persona non grata. An old memory. Growing up, you silly prima donna. Ashamed of myself, never. Do you realize the non-importance of your role in society? Oh my God. It's classified along with used car salesmen and real estate agents. Don't get above your station in life. And exactly. Now,
oh, the video came through, but I'm not coming through. Am I back now? Thank you, Sean. Did the video come through? And did you hear the video? I went on mute because I was worried you might get a reverb and forgot to take myself off. Just let me know if you caught the video. Awesome. Video came through. Thank you. What did you think? Other words that I said. What did you think hearing that? Some of you may have heard that. That may be the second time that you were hearing that. If you've listened to this podcast episode already, some of you might hear that and go, oh, par for the course, Amanda. Welcome to my world. We get these kind of emails all the time. I think that email was disgusting. I know you get tough emails. I get tough emails, but that one was next level. Lots of comments coming through, not just telling me you couldn't hear me. Thank you. But we're getting your feedback now. Daryl saying some owners have taken the position that all strata managers are evil and they deserve to be treated poorly. Usually that owner also believes that the strata manager is their building manager who will snap to attention and initiate repairs without consulting the strata committee. Some of the abuse we receive on an almost daily basis is crazy. And I spent over 20 years as a security guard before starting here. That skill may have you well placed, Daryl, to be a strata manager. Kristen saying, oh, her reaction was every bit as astounded today as it was yesterday. Melissa saying, just horrible and so uncalled for, just horrible. And it happens so often. Yeah, interesting to hear from you, strata managers, that you think this is horrible as well. Disgusting, says Sean. Appalling, says Romaine. Luke saying, I think there's more to this story. Okay, all right, interesting. Daryl saying that's an abominable email. James, this person is a lowlife, completely out of bounds, atrocious. The content of the email did cross the line. That's someone on LinkedIn. I can't see your name, unfortunately. Horrible. Okay. All right. We're on board. Good. I'm glad none of you said, oh, it's fine. Amanda, strata manager should just suck it up, deal with it. That kind of communication from my point of view and what I'm hearing from you here today, thank you, is not on. I'm hearing from you that you agree that is not on. If you are a strata manager who is receiving emails like this, have ever received an email like this, please know you have permission. You have my permission. You have the permission of everybody here who is commenting to reply to that person. And I think regardless, I know Luke is saying, I think there's more to this story here. I think regardless of what may have come before, I don't think there's any excuse for that kind of email. We're not talking about in the heat of a moment on the phone here. Not to say people don't send emails in the heat of a moment, but put something in writing. It's a different level. Not acceptable in any circumstance. And you have my permission of others, experienced managers here, letting you know their view to reply to say to a person like that, do not ever communicate with me like that again. That is not acceptable. And if you continue to communicate with me in that way, your emails will be ignored. And please, if you're a junior manager, if you're an employed manager, you have a team leader, you have an owner of the business, please be bringing this kind of communication to the attention of your seniors, your mentors, your boss, letting them know that this is happening because it's not okay. And I encourage any strata management company, business owner who is working with owners, they don't have to be committee members, owners who are communicating with them in this way, let the committee know. If it's not a committee member, let the committee know that this communication has occurred. Send it to the committee and be telling the committee, this is not acceptable. We have dealt with it in this way, according to our office policy. And you may want to think about implementing an office policy about how to deal with these kinds of communications so that you can fall back on that. We've dealt with this according to our policy. We've sent this reply. We're bringing this to your attention. You may wish to communicate with this owner yourself and to let them know that in your eyes as the committee, this communication is not acceptable. Because if we continue, I'm suggesting you can say as a strata manager, if we continue to receive communications from this owner or from anyone in your building in this tone or with this content, we will no longer be able to work with you. Okay, this is grounds for terminating the contract. And you can build these in. If you're not confident that you have that built into your contract, you can build in clauses like that into your contract. If we receive this kind of communication, then we will be giving notice to terminate the contract. Why work with somebody? Why work with the building that has owners that are going to communicate in this way? And what you're doing there is shifting that responsibility over to the committee to take this on, for them to be aware that they have owners communicating in this way, and for them to be aware that they're going to lose you. They're going to lose a good, devoted, committed, hardworking manager if their owners continue to operate in that way. They are then taking some responsibility for this problem. It's not all on your shoulders as a strata manager, because it's not. It is not acceptable. There are degrees. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today, about degrees of what maybe we just, as professionals, suck up, take the high road, deal with. Happens every day. We get on with it. We're paid professionals. That's what we do. And then that's that line, what is not acceptable. And I have done it in my career. I've done it as a committee member with owners. I've certainly done it as a lawyer with clients and with others to say that is not acceptable. That is not how you communicate with me. And guess what? It don't happen again. That's called setting boundaries. Really, really important. And I want to acknowledge that that is easier for some people than others. It may be easy for me as a lawyer operating in a culture where lawyers are, in the main, respected, perhaps more respected than some others, certainly more respected in our world than strata managers. It's easy for me as somebody with 2 university degrees, with 20 years of experience, with the confidence of that experience, being a naturally confident person as well. For some of us, it is easier than others. For people like Rena Van Alst, it may be easier than others. It is not that easy for other people. So please, if you're a junior person or a person who may need that support and that confidence, be sharing this with your team members, with your team leaders, with your boss that this is happening. Please don't suffer in silence and get the support that you need. Use my words. I've given you some words there that you may be able to use when you're responding to this kind of correspondence. Okay, those comments I've been watching in the corner of my eye have been flying through. Kim saying completely out of bounds. Mark saying says more about the author. Sean thought it was measured against some that perhaps Sean might be receiving. It was mild. Kira saying there's more to this. Unacceptable, but frustration leads to extremes of behavior. That is the heart of what we are talking about today, what I want to talk about today, Kyria. And I am hearing a lot of strata manager voices. I know there's some owner voices here in the comments as well. But what I saw on some of our Facebook comments today and in a separate but connected discussion that is happening on LinkedIn, which I'm going to take you over to have a look at, there is some finger pointing. I'm going to call it some finger pointing going on. Strata managers frustrated with and upset about the way owners are communicating with them, and owners frustrated with and upset about the way strata managers communicate with them and saying, well, hang on a second. Strata manager is not performing. Strata manager doesn't take my calls. Strata manager doesn't. Strata manager doesn't. What do they expect? We're going to lash out. We're going to be upset. We're going to perhaps fire off emails that we wish we didn't fire off. I hear you. I hope I've said quite clearly that an email in the terms that you just heard Rena read out, in my view, is never acceptable. That is not to say that there aren't owners out there who are frustrated with, upset about poor service that they're receiving from their strata manager and may feel the need from time to time to point out that poor service. I do think that's a different thing. Sean O is saying, trouble is many companies' licensees in charge do nothing about it. That sounds awful, Sean. Heartbreaking to me. I think if you're working in a company like that, it's time to move on. Let's just be clear here. There are more buildings than strata managers, right? There are more buildings that need strata managers than there are strata managers out there. You are the service that is in demand. You're in demand. If your company is not going to support you in dealing with communications like that, then it may be that you're working for the wrong company. I was just looking on Seek earlier today, and you'll find out why I was looking on Seek. So many strata manager positions advertised. You guys will tell me you're hiring all the time. Why stay in a role that you're not supported by those who are supposed to be looking out for you? Other jobs out there, guys. Melissa McPherson is saying communications bylaw is my favorite. Yes, you're referring to the communications bylaw that's available inside my templates library. Melissa, I know that you've used that one to great effect. You're not the first one today to mention the communications bylaw or a bylaw to help regulate communications. In a little bit later, I'm going to take you over to another comment from an experienced strata manager that mentioned the benefit of buildings having bylaws and rules in place to help manage communications. So great to hear that. Sounds like some of your buildings are using that, Melissa, to great effect. Daryl saying, no, frustration does not give anyone a pass to treat someone like that. Ready Strata Management saying, this is not unusual language for a strata manager to hear. I just assume that someone that talks to another person that way is the sort of person that talks down to servers in a restaurant. We are all people and nobody deserves to be respected. Yeah, that was the bit that if you saw in the video, I was kind of, what? Email ended with something like, you're the bottom of the barrel, you're the dregs of the earth kind of thing. I mean, there is, no excuse for that one. Leonie saying, I've had the opposite horrible email sent to me from a previous strata manager. Absolutely. I want to acknowledge that is happening in some places, and that is not on. That is not on. I was talking to a strata manager online just this afternoon, talking about doing some CPD training for the team. And he was saying, Amanda, I listened to the podcast and I hope I can tune in this afternoon. I understand what you're going to talk about. Totally get it. But he said, sometimes, I see emails sent by strata managers that I think as a strata manager, oh, mate, no, shouldn't have sent that. He said, sometimes I think strata managers can tie themselves up into this knot. They can put themselves in this place where they do lower themselves to this kind of communication and open the door to it. Yeah, I've seen that happen as well. That is something that I discourage, obviously, just as owners need to be thinking carefully before they're firing off those emails. Strata managers absolutely do too. And that is the part I come back to. That is what being a professional is all about. Not being emotional, not being biased or having an interest in the outcome that your client may be wanting to achieve. You are disinterested. And that word does not mean uninterested. It means impartial. You need to be standing apart from the emotion of that scenario so that you can properly guide and advise. So getting into an email war, keyboard war with an owner is never a good idea. Not a good look. And it does, maybe that's what was going on here. To Luke's point, no, more to this than meets the eye. Maybe that's what was going on here. And that's where it degenerated to. So Leonie acknowledged that can happen from the other angle, from the other side as well. Jeff saying, agree, sometimes committees instruct managers not to provide information. The manager's the meat in the sandwich. However, the committee is the real problem. Sometimes it may be the owner who is the issue. We need the full story. Yeah, Jeff, that exact point was discussed on the podcast this week as well, where Rena was saying, as a compulsory manager, I send documents out to everybody. There's full transparency. I make sure everybody knows what's going on. I can't do that when I am a voluntarily appointed manager. I have to take instructions from the committee. And sometimes the committee's instruction is, don't send that document. Don't answer that owner's email. Don't communicate with that owner. Send this, not that. And it can make the strata manager look bad. And it can make the owner feel like they're being targeted and make it seem like the strata manager is not doing their job. They are doing their job. They're following the instructions of the owner's corporation, their client, and the owner's corporation instructs through the strata committee. So yes, that does happen, Jeff. Sean saying termination for persistent abuse. Yay, you like that idea, Sean? Yep. Holly saying, Amanda, I'd like to know what led to this situation. While the type of email sent crossed a line, what led to this situation? If the conversation gets this heated, both sides have failed. Yeah, and it may be that strata manager is feeling that, Holly, and thinking, oh, that's where it got to. Perhaps I could do things differently in the future so it doesn't get to that level. I think we all have something to learn from a communication and experience that ends up in that category. Suzanne saying something like that happened at our strata management. Lot owner told her not the chairperson anymore. I, as a committee member, apologized for the behavior on one just owner. The owner is now banned from emails. You know, finding ways for the building to take responsibility, I think is really, really important here. So it's not on the strata manager to deal with that. Okay. That is not alone the reason why I mentioned this as such a hot topic issue this week. At the same time that Rena and I were recording this chat, there was a post that another strata manager was putting together to share with her network on LinkedIn. And it is along similar, not the same, but similar lines. What I'm going to do is share this here with you by selecting the correct window. No audio on this one, so I'll stay with you here on the microphone. Try and make that's not going to work that way. Okay, that's about as big as I can make it, guys, but I'll read out most of it to you. This is a post by Natalie Fitzgerald. Natalie is a strata manager, works at Genesis Strata Management, and is also a board member of the SCA New South Wales board. And Natalie's a brilliant writer. Natalie writes, my name isn't Strata. After receiving my third email today addressed Dear Strata, a thought passed through my mind. My name isn't Strata. I have no special authority or powers. I cannot kick someone out of their home for being too loud. I can't arrange to have their car parked in a private space towed. These are the things that I can't do. Can't provide legal advice, financial advice. I'm not responsible for the defective fire equipment. My name isn't Strata. My name is Natalie. I will support you in every way I can. I will call the lift company and ask why, how, and when of the repair. I'll tell you your rights in relation to defects. I'll advocate for you. I'll refer you to the best lawyers. I will empower you with information. I will find that out-of-the-box solution. I will fight for you. I know your lot isn't just a number on a strata plan. I understand that it's your home and it's likely one of your greatest financial investments. I know you worked for it and you're still working for it. My name isn't Strata, it's Natalie. And I've got you, if you'll let me. Goosebumps. I love it. I love it too. I definitely gave that one a love heart. I think I gave it some claps. Daryl saying Natalie's is a strata wizard. Sean saying love this post. It's over on Natalie Fitzgerald's LinkedIn profile. If you do want to head over there, connect with Natalie, follow Natalie, and you can be the first to know about her posts. The other thing that you may want to do is read some of the comments under that post. And it's a reason why I wanted to focus on this today, together with the podcast chat with Rena. Quite surprisingly to me, more than one person challenged Natalie about her approach in this situation and questioned whether there was something that she was doing or wasn't doing with her clients to encourage them to refer to her as the Strata or Dear Strata. There was a suggestion that perhaps she didn't know her clients very well, wasn't connected to them, didn't have a heart-centered approach to the work that she does. I can't think of anyone who is more heart-centered and personal and personable than Natalie Fitzgerald, often too much so. And I think that those criticisms of Natalie's share here, which I know because she picked up the phone and had a chat to me after listening to the podcast, I think those criticisms of her share, which she thought was just something nice to be sharing, perhaps something helpful for others to relate to and maybe get a few laughs along the way, I think those comments and those criticisms miss the point. Natalie wasn't making a criticism here on my reading of her post about owners asking too much or demanding too much or being rude, or this is not the email that you heard Rena read out on the podcast, right? Very different from that email. The point Natalie was making, and she does say this in her reply comments on the post, is that there's a real disconnect here between who owners think their strata managers are and what they expect them to do, and who they actually are and what they actually do. And if you go and reread that post, you can watch this replay or go and check out the LinkedIn post directly. That's what Natalie's saying. I'm not the strata. I'm not this magical, mystical, and there's a great AI image from Tim Sarah. Thank you, Tim, for that, under Natalie's post. I'm not this God, this all-powerful being that you think the strata is, that can do all of these things that you think I can do. I'm not the one who can fix the lift, but I'm Natalie, your strata manager, and I can arrange that for you. I can't change the law, but I'm Natalie, your strata manager, and my job is to connect you with lawyers who can help you with that. I'm not the strata. Natalie wasn't complaining about my clients are awful, they don't know my name. The point Natalie was making is we're getting something wrong here when after 20 years plus, I've been in the space for 20 years, Natalie too, of trying to explain what strata living is, what an owner's corporation is, what a body corporate is, that every owner is a member of the body corporate, there is still this pervasive concept of the strata and what the strata should do for me and what the strata is not doing for me. And in calling this out, Natalie is in excellent company. The person who best explains this frustrating concept is Professor Kathy Sherry, who many of you know and love. She was, I think, maybe the first that I ever heard years ago saying, what's this thing with the strata? There is no the strata. We have an owners corporation, and owners, you are all members of the owners corporation. The strata is you. You have control here. That is what I believe, and I know, having spoken to Natalie and reading her comments under the post, that was the point of Natalie's post. So returning to the finger pointing, perhaps, that I mentioned earlier, and I'm acknowledging those comments here from owners in our live chat here saying, it's not all about owners needing to communicate better. Strata managers need to do their bit as well. There's a reason why. Perhaps there's a reason why we write Dear Strata. Perhaps there's a reason why we send frustrated, heat of the moment emails that we wish we didn't send. Yeah, I want to recognize that and ask the question, what's going on here and how do we solve it? I want to ask that question, not promising any answers, and say a little bit more than what I said in the podcast chat with Rena, which, if you've listened to it, having heard the content of the email that Rena relayed and the shock that you saw on my face watching that video earlier, I immediately said, where's the strata manager's advocate in this? Who is helping strata managers to deal with this communication? Who is saying anything on behalf of strata managers about this not being acceptable? Is the SCA doing something about this? And when I saw Natalie's post, knowing that she was a board member of the SCA, you'll see I had commented under that post. Natalie listened to the podcast, and after listening to that podcast, she picked up the phone and gave me a call. I want to go a little bit further than what I said on the podcast. And if that seemed a little bit simplistic and reductionist, I apologize for that. This is not just SCA's problem to fix, that's for sure. This has to be a group effort. And when I say problem to fix, I'm talking broadly about the problem of communications, poor communications from the owner side, from the strata manager side, absolutely as well. Poor communications, harmful, hurtful communications that come from a place of strata managers not expressing, not properly able to relay their role and what their role is, and not being able to set expectations. And on the other hand, owners not understanding what it is their strata manager does, or indeed not being happy with the service that their strata manager is providing, because they ain't getting good service. I want to acknowledge that. So a group effort here from strata managers, yes to educate their clients, yes to do as much as they can to help their clients to understand what it is that we do. I know Natalie is a leader in that space for doing that. You just have to look at the Genesis website to see the hard work that her and her team do in that space. Yes, a group effort from our strata management industry bodies, from SCA. And the chat that I had with Natalie when she picked up the phone to me was, as a board member, are you able to say anything in response about what maybe SCA is doing here in this space to improve the reputation of strata managers? Big job following 2024, but to assist owners in recognizing what it is that their strata manager is there to do to solve this problem, this concept of the strata, to stamp out this concept of the strata. And on such short notice, Natalie wasn't able to speak with me with her board member hat on. I want to be really clear about that. We did have a conversation in her personal capacity, not as a board member. But what she did point out is some public information. This is the reason I was on Seek earlier today. There's an ad. There's an ad out on Seek at the moment from SCA National. They are recruiting for a communications and marketing person. You'll find that job on Seek. If that's your skill set and you love strata, go and check it out. SCA is looking for a communications and marketing person. Natalie said to me, her personal view is that sounds like then SCA is looking at how it can do better in this space, coming off the back of a really hard year, to position strata managers more clearly what it is that their role is, and to try not to end up in this position where owners are misunderstanding, or indeed owners are frustrated and are not getting what they think they are entitled to or need to be getting from their strata manager. So the intent through my conversation with Natalie, from her personal view, not her board member view, is to do some more work on owner education and public education in general about what it is that strata managers do, expectation management for owners. The fact is that we are many, many years into strata being a big business, a big industry, and something is not landing when it comes to knowing how strata works and what it is that these professionals do. It's nuts that we are still talking about this so many years in to strata being such a big part of so many people's lives. So I've said managers, yes, part of the solution to this. Advocacy groups and industry associations, part of the solution to this. Owners, yes, part of the solution to this. And I've mentioned there where committee members who might be aware of individual owners who are given the strata manager an unfair. Sometimes these are warranted, never those emails we talked about, but sometimes, yeah, we got to remind our strata managers what they're there to do. But owners who are giving a strata manager a really unfair time to be pulling those owners into line and saying, hey, we might lose our manager if you keep this up. So can you just pull your head in? Owners, I think, have a role to play there, and the committees and owner representative groups. I mentioned the OCN on the podcast. I hope you see that I try to do my bit here as well, talking about these issues. What I did say on the podcast is that this is often not the audience who needs to hear these conversations. Those who are members of the OCN, those who are members of my online community, those of you who tune in. I would like to think, I know it's probably not necessarily the case for 100%, but I would like to think that you're not the ones who are sending these unacceptable communications, and that it's others who need to hear this message. Government, our state and territory governments absolutely need to be part of this solution. We're seeing a little bit more, I think, in New South Wales, where we've seen fair trading advertising, where there are licenses being revoked, fines and penalties in the real estate industry more generally. Not too many examples of that in strata yet. But that kind of work is really important so that there is a clear differentiation between these are the good strata managers and these are the not so good. We need to be advertising that, and owners to be seeing that there is a strong, effective regulator there that will deal with poor practices. I would love to see, as I said on the podcast, a media campaign explaining strata to owners, not just something on a website, but some advertising. When we have our road toll increases, when we have too many people driving on their phones, when we have people behaving badly on the road, we have our state government step in and do a media campaign. Can you imagine something like that happening in the strata space? Your strata manager is not the strata. The strata is not a thing. This is what your body corporate is, and you are all members of the body corporate. And if you want a good community, it's up to you to contribute to that. What do you think of that idea? And a level of personal responsibility, absolutely, for both managers and for owners. And these are the thoughts that I shared at the top of this chat. Empowering managers, particularly those who are new to the space, to be confident, to say, this is not on. No, you don't communicate with me like that. This is where the line is, and you crossed it. That is okay. And I think in some situations, more of that needs to be happening when I hear from managers the kinds of things that they're putting up with. And this is a market where the managers are going to be the ones who are ruling the market because there's not enough of them. And that's why all of this matters. To try and bring it together, that is why all of this matters, because strata managers are leaving strata management because of these kinds of communications, because of the unreasonable demands, because of the unreasonable expectations, which is not necessarily a fault of the owners that their expectations are unreasonable. They don't know what their strata manager is supposed to be doing. But strata managers are leaving the profession, the industry, whatever you want to call it, and that is already a big problem. It's going to be a really serious problem as we have more and more buildings coming online that need strata management. Strata management is going to get more expensive. It's going to be harder to find a manager, and you're going to have to tread very carefully if you want to keep your good manager on board. That's why this matters and this conversation is important. I'm going to head into those comments, and then I'm going to wrap up by sharing with you another post from LinkedIn that was posted under our sharing, or my sharing on my profile of the podcast this week. And I think it's a really nice summary of a lot of the things we've been talking about today. But I do want to give you some time here to share your views. Romain saying, can you comment later on owner to owner disrespect in direct speech and in mail? Yeah, Romain, you know what I say? You got an owner in your community who is sending emails maybe similar to the one that Rena read out earlier. You say exactly the same thing. Not acceptable. I've done that in my building with an owner who communicated with me in a way I said, not acceptable. Do not ever send me an email in those types of terms again. If you do, I will ignore it. I will not read it, and I will block you from my email account, and I won't receive your emails anymore. You're entitled to do that. That is your boundary. That is your personal space. Draw that boundary. James saying, often owners expect more than their strata agreement provides. Few agreements provide a 24/7 concierge service. Yep. So hitting that note there, James, about setting the right expectations, definitely. Shana saying Amanda's bylaw for communications for YSP members is excellent. Thank you very much, Shana, for saying so. That's a template that we have available to our members. Daryl saying the level of vitriol certainly says a lot about the type of person that sent it through. Yes. Grant saying, hi, Amanda, I've uncovered the strata manager sending disparaging emails and appalling language about owners sent to the strata committee, no foundation nor evidence, but the committee pays the strata manager. The committee loves the strata manager, even though the owners do not, so no consequence. Yeah. You might take some comfort, Grant, from the post that I'm shortly about to share from a strata manager that calls on other strata managers not to be siding with committees or with committee members, and to recognize that they are there to serve the owners corporation as a whole. So stay tuned. Jeff saying sometimes the manager can be protecting an owner. The owner cannot be told the reason. That's a real situation. Yeah. Angela loving, I think, Natalie's post there. Kyria saying, when a strata manager is instructed not to do something that's normally responded to, wouldn't it be better to respond in a timely manner to the owner that the committee has instructed that no further action will be taken? Strata manager committee needs to be responded to about a complaint. Otherwise, the answer, no answer, is just as abusive. Yeah, I like that, Kyria. I like that. I said earlier that, a non-responsive strata manager is often non-responsive. Oh, sorry, can be. I don't want to say often, can be non-responsive because that's their instruction. If I was, let's think of it this way, as a lawyer, if I was told by a client, Amanda, I don't want you to respond to the other side. Their offer is crap. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to give them the courtesy of a reply. I suppose in that situation, I would say that's not what I recommend. What I recommend is that we do reply saying it's rejected, or I reply saying, I have no instructions. I have no instructions to respond to you at this point in time. If that changes, you'll know about it. I think that's okay. And I think I would be telling my client, I'm a professional. There are rules of conduct that apply to my profession. This is my usual practice, and I will be sending an email in these terms. I have no instructions to reply to you. Have a think about that one. Thanks for that reminder, Kyria. I think that's a good one. Okay, so commenting there on the Dear Strata email, I'm just scrolling through those comments rather quickly. Luke is saying, this is a matter that all parties need to work with, the media, the government, the industry. Yep, agree with you there, Luke. Holly saying, hi, Natalie, thank you for sharing your insights from the strata manager perspective. While an owner understands you can't fix the lift, they do need clear and measurable information from the strata manager about it. It would be helpful if proactive communication is used to disseminate this information so owners don't have to ask for more details. If you share those details up front, I believe it will lead to a more positive response. Yeah, Holly, I think the first person who would be on board with all of that is Natalie. So if you go back and have a read of the post, that's exactly what she goes on to say. I'm Natalie, and I can do these things for you. I can call the lift company and ask about the repair and follow that up. I can absolutely do all of those things for you. I think the point of her email was about that expectation setting, and point of her post was about that expectation setting, and owners who perhaps write Dear Strata thinking that you are the all-powerful strata god, as Tim Sarah personified in his post, in his comment so well. Peter saying it's a two-way issue. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Steve in Gaimea, who's been here since 4 o'clock. Awesome. Love that. Okay, those comments just keep on coming. And I do want to make sure that I share with you, as a close for today, this post. Oh, here we go. Who's the post from? This is a post from a name that will be familiar to you. Nina Howe has posted this on LinkedIn under my post on my profile where we were sharing the podcast episode. And I want you to have a close look at this one. Let's see if I can make that any bigger here for you. And I will read it out. There we go. Nina says, dealing with difficult owners or committee members is inevitable. Some behave poorly towards strata managers or other owners, creating unnecessary conflict and disharmony within the building. As a strata manager, it is essential to be strong, courageous, and willing to stand up to misbehavior. Too often, weak leadership and people-pleasing approaches lead to greater issues down the track. Strata managers must take charge, set the tone, and ensure the scheme is managed effectively. Bylaws. There it is. Bylaws addressing conduct and communication is helpful also to establish clear boundaries. My approach, says Nina, I always start with empathy to de-escalate tension, but I make it crystal clear what behavior is unacceptable. And as I said, clear boundaries are key. Without them, disruptive owners can take control and undermine the harmony of the community and make managing the scheme a nightmare in the future. Strata managers, don't take the easy route by siding with the loudest owner or committee member just to make your job easier. Our role is to act in the owner's corporation's best interests, which includes managing personalities and setting firm boundaries. Stand strong, lead with confidence, and uphold the standards that keep buildings running smoothly. Those are the thoughts of Strata Manager Nina Howe from Wellman Strata. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us, Nina. I feel privileged that we have managers like Nina, like Natalie out there serving buildings. And I commend those of you who agree with what Nina and what Natalie have to say to go to their LinkedIn profiles and to show you their support. I did see a post from a person who in their comment identified themselves as a lot owner from Breakfast Point, posted under Natalie's post thanking her for her communication. If you are that person, then head over to Nina Howe or Natalie Fitzgerald's LinkedIn profiles to express your support. It's not an easy issue. If it was easy, we would have solved this one long ago. But I thank you for the space and the time to air some thoughts with you, to share your thoughts and your comments on this subject. Is a conversation that, as always, we will be continuing. Thanks for joining me on a Friday. Have a fantastic weekend in Strata. Next Friday, I will be on US time. Not yet sure if we'll be able to squeeze in a live appearance around this time, but keep your eyes on the Facebook page and we will let you know what's going on next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye for now.